Hi fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. Today I'm finally going to be continuing my adaptation series. For those of you who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about or are newer to my channel, first of all, hello, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that you're enjoying this channel so far. Over the summer, I decided to start a series about book-to-TV adaptations. I made the intro video and talked about Anne of Green Gables and the TV show Anne with an E, and then I never continued with the series. So today I am going to continue that series by talking about the adaptation that inspired me to start the series in the first place, and that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and the Emmy and Golden Globe award-winning Hulu Original Series by the same name. Now, I read The Handmaid's Tale at least 4 or 5 years ago now, and I watched this series last May, so there's actually quite a bit of distance between me and the media at this point. And I wonder if my distance from the media will affect how I think about both the book and the show, and if there are those of you out there who have read the book or watched the series more recently than me, I'd love to hear your thoughts and how they differ from my own. But enough of all that, let's discuss The Handmaid's Tale. So, the book The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood was published in 1985, but as I said, I only read it 4 or 5 years ago. The premise of the book is the same as the TV show, so I'll read you the back of the book because it does a spectacular job of summarizing the most important aspects of the premise. Offred is a handmaid in the Republic of Gilead. She may leave the home of the commander and his wife once a day to walk to food markets, whose signs are now pictures instead of words because women are no longer allowed to read. She must lie on her back once a month and pray that the commander makes her pregnant, because in an age of declining births, Offred and the other handmaids are valued only if their ovaries are viable. Offred can remember the years before, when she lived and made love with her husband Luke, when she played with and protected her daughter, when she had a job, money of her own, and access to knowledge. But all of that is gone now. Everything has changed. Now, while the dystopian world of the book may seem a bit extreme, Atwood actually took inspiration for the premise from the story from real-life events. In interviews, she cites turning to historical events like the rise of the Christian right in the 80s and the Islamic Revolution in 1979, as well as the Puritans in 17th century New England, most notably the case of Mary Webster, who was accused of witchcraft even before the hysteria of Salem, Massachusetts. Part of what makes this TV show adaptation so successful and utterly terrifying is that it actually draws from real life and recent history to portray a world that seems so modern and such a plausible reality for a potential future. There's one episode, I believe it may have even been the first episode, that ends with Offred just cursing loudly, and then the iconic song from The Breakfast Club, Don't You Forget About Me, plays loudly. I thought that was such an interesting choice because it puts the book into its 1980s or even present-day context. There's a pop culture reference that I think pretty much everyone is familiar with nowadays, and putting it there just emphasizes that this isn't some other dystopian with flying cars and sentient robots. This is just like the inspiration for the book. And it shows glimpses of tyranny and oppression that actually exist in our society, and given just the wrong circumstances, can make our worst nightmares come true. Something else that makes this adaptation so successful for me is that almost every difference between the book and the TV show, every change or additional plot point, seems to have a purpose and serves to enhance the original attitude of the book. However, the biggest and most significant change in the show is the character of Offred herself. I think her inner sense of resistance is more realized on screen. Most notably, in the first episode, Offred reveals that her name is June. As a reader, we are never explicitly told Offred's true name. However, when she first arrives at the Red Center in the book, we are told that she and the other woman exchanged names from bed to bed. Alma, Janine, Dolores, Moira, June. June is the only name on that list who is not a different character in the novel, so it's really a delightful interpretation that that must be the name of our main character. Offred's true name is one of the most important aspects of the TV show that gives her power and agency within the series. I also like the stylistic choices that were made to convey Offred's sense of interiority on screen. Offred often talks to the camera, but her lips don't move. It's just like her first-person narrative in the book, and it's done fantastically. Also, the role of silence in the show is something profound. It works so well, and that's something that the medium of the novel can't achieve. There is never silence in a book. Even the description of silence is noisy and full of words. Another notable difference in the TV show is Mr. Waterford, or Fred, or the Commander, as he's called. He's much more sinister in the show, which actually makes sense to me. I always wondered in the book why he was so nice to Offred, as if he pitied her. At least that's how I read it initially. But if he truly pitied her, how could he be so high up in this totalitarian government that instituted all these policies and stripped women of so many rights? In the book, it was almost as if he had shown remorse for the world that he helped create. The rendition of Fred in the TV show doesn't have that interpretation for me. When he says the quintessential lines, "better never means better for everyone," he truly seems to mean it and stand by it. I think the show also does a beautiful job of exploring some of the other characters that aren't explored in detail in the book. Mrs. Waterford and Nick are arguably more complex and nuanced in the TV show. And what happened to Offred's daughter, what happened to her husband, those questions are all answered and explored in the TV show as well. I also thought it was brilliant the way in which the TV show handled the character of Offglen. And I'm not going to be giving spoilers here, but the book leaves her with an open-ended fate. And I always assumed that she had just died, personally. But what they did to her in the TV show, in my opinion, is indicative of a fate worse than death. At first, I thought that by allowing us to know what happens to Offglen, it's ruining the terror of the original source material, that not knowing what happens to her is actually more scary. But after thinking about it for a while, her fate here in the TV show is more shocking, and it actually proves a point about what society truly cares about. They truly do value birthing children more than everything else. Another brilliant aspect of the show is how they begin to look beyond the Republic of Gilead. There is an episode where a female Mexican diplomat comes to see the conditions in Gilead and negotiate trade deals with Mr. Waterford. You see how the world handles the situation in Gilead and the global impact that their society has. I think part of what makes The Handmaid's Tale so successful, though, is its ease for adaptation. The book itself is spectacular, but it leaves so many, many loose ends and things for the reader to wonder about. I don't mind when the series goes off-booked, so to speak, because even though it features things that didn't happen in the book, so far all of the deviations are entirely believable additions to the book. The choices that the series makes fills a void that the book left, without diminishing the original work itself, and that makes it absolutely spectacular as an adaptation. As far as I know, this is the best book-to-TV adaptation I have ever seen. Of course, it's a horrendous show that takes so much of my emotional energy and features horrific acts of rape and abuse, but it's brilliantly done, and I am awaiting season 2 coming on April 25th on Hulu with bated breath. So, if you have read this book, if you have seen this adaptation, I would love to know what you think about it. Are your views similar to my own? Did you like one more or less than the other? I just would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Until next time, happy reading!